Okay, so a bit of a smorgasbord of things that I'm going to be going over in this stream, because there's a few things that I've been procrastinating on, namely builds and build changes as a result of the last couple of patches, which have obviously been changing some systems pretty significantly. And then looking at a couple of the other changes that they made sort of as knock-on to correct issues, and also the builds that were made as a result of those, and like other external factors as well. So to begin with, a couple of corrections / updates from the prior update and analysis stream, which, to be fair, I haven't been very diligent about going back and editing or timestamping it either, but in any case, there's been a few changes, not only because of this small update, but also the posts that I made myself. So to begin with, the faction structural parts, I actually had the same image twice. I had this one up here as well, so there wasn't really a before and after. It was just showing it, so now I've corrected that, so the values are going to be, you can even see some minor coloration differences. The biggest thing is they just, this was for the original next step update, so it actually would have been these patch notes, where they changed the primarily bullet and blast resistance. So we can see the bullet durability and explosive durability per, and then whatever subcategory you're looking for is changed slightly. So by reducing the maximum amount by 5 to 10% on some of these, they have ended up narrowing the gap between the highest and lowest values. So for instance, beforehand we had the cast parts have a durability per volume of 6.03, and now that's down to 5.6. Not a enormous shift, but of course brings it closer to that minimum of 2.04, which hasn't changed. And then same thing with explosives. So the actual hierarchy, as in the coloration for what is the best in the slot, indicated by green, or the opposite for red, which isn't necessarily always the worst in slot. It can have other benefits in other ways. So for instance, having low durability per volume allows you to essentially have more spaced out armor, which tends to make it a little bit more resistant to blast damage. But in any case, that's a fairly minor thing. Literally nobody commented or made any note on it or anything, so I'm not really expecting anyone to care, but I found out about it, so I fixed it. I haven't double-checked these, but I believe that they're actually different. Yeah, they have the updated RAM values, so those should be fine. Again, if there's more problems, then I will find them, change them, and then comment on them. So, yeah, it doesn't really change any of the actual info you'll do with the data. Just trying to be more think better about catching all of those changes. So the small update, changing a couple things. Most of these were bug fixes, luckily. They did notably change the bonnet parts, so those were the battle walker damage pass-through parts, and it makes sense. I think I even mentioned in the stream that it was weird that they were essentially just like weaker, more concave elbows. So now they quintupled the durability, but also nearly halved the damage pass-through value. So in effect, what this means is not only is it more scavengery, quote-unquote, by being higher raw durability, which applies to the vehicle, and higher mass as a trade-off, but it does actually have the exact same effective HP. So you went from 22 with 90% pass-through for an effective health of 220 to 110 with 50% damage pass-through for a effective health of 220. So in theory, you could look at it as a EHP being the same frame and then a significant mass nerf. But realistically, again, this applies to vehicle dura. This also applies when you are looking at parts that are cryogenically frozen and lose their reductions. And then again, this is just like having it be a 22 dura part, 26 mass part for scavengers was kind of silly. So glad they corrected that. And then they also notably reordered the parts in storage. So it's actually a bit of an annoyance too. So I do have like the game open, and then I can open this and show. So for instance, the reinforced parts are now before the bumpers and passive melee weapons, rather than at the very end of the list for whatever absurd reason. Likewise, the Battle Walker parts aren't after the after the Steppenwolf parts. They are mixed in with the Scavenger parts. I guess you could say added onto, because they're still separated from the container scrap into their own Battle Walker part category, but in case those were mixed in. And then they also changed a couple of the other parts in the list to the frame part category as part of the update, which I still disagree with, because for instance the elbows are very much printed parts, the bonnets are Battle Walker parts, the tendinums are Ravager parts, the landing skids are helicopter parts. But in any case, the devs don't do what I want, because they're the devs and I'm not. So they mix them in up here, and as such I indicated thusly on the spreadsheet by highlighting it in yellow and indicating that it's technically part of a different series, but for whatever reason it's up here in the frames. They're also still inconsistent about it, because beforehand, when the bonnet was a 90% damage pass-through, it kind of made more sense to have it up here with all the other quote-unquote frame damage pass-through parts, but even then it ignores the other parts with 90% damage pass-through, which admittedly are all prestige parts, which can kind of make sense. But at the same time, there's also the helicopter wings, which are 50%, and the mounting brackets, which are 50%, and the Saya, which is 50%, and those all stay within their respective subtypes. Whereas now that they changed this, it's still up here. So is this supposed to be just for the 90%? If so, why doesn't it have all of them? Is it supposed to be all the ones with damage pass-through? If so, why doesn't it have all of them? Is it supposed to just be like whatever weird system they were trying to apply and then got halfway through it and then realized they messed up and then changed it again so it wasn't messed up and didn't take into account the new system? That would probably be my guess. In any case, they also, like I said, changed the order to this, so the reinforced parts are together and the Battle Walker parts are up here. As such, we can also look at changing this to have the Scavengers Battle Walker parts as their own component in the list. But I seem to recall when I checked during last stream, the Battle Walker parts had identical effective values to the other Scavenger parts, so I don't know if there's any real need to add it there. You can essentially just see it as a continuation of that, but yeah, I mean, we have the same damage reductions, and then I believe there was a couple of parts with identical stats. But, well, this is a poor example because they're concave. So, yeah, I don't know. Might end up changing that, throwing it back on later. I'm not 100% sure, but let's see. Those are 24, yeah, 242, 101, 438. So, I mean, to be fair, the quantity could change, but yeah, so they're just equivalent with another subtype. So, we can, this is actually dynamic. I think, nope, guess not. So this is technically both the container and the Battle Walker parts, where we're specifically using the container scrap category container wall as an example, where we pulled this data. And should probably unhide these values now that I updated the spreadsheet. So yeah, showing the two different reinforced parts, and then the other one's just a continuation of this of scavengers. And these ones look to have fairly subtle differences, but then again, this is concave as well. So you probably expect for the most part that these are also duplicate. So I might end up simplifying these some more by reducing the second category, but in any case, they're at least currently both there, and some of them do actually have differences in values between the different subtypes. So, shrug. Okay, so there's all that. I do theoretically need to update the structural part calculator with all the new data, but that shouldn't change a whole lot. Likewise, because of the other, well, as per the other post I made about us gaining parts, theoretically valuable for me to go through and rebuild quite a few things. At the same time, this is kind of in combination with the other new parts from the battle walkers, so most of my rebuilds might be me holding off until I get all of the battle walker parts, since I mean you only get 4 of most of them anyway, and doing anything with 2 is fairly difficult, especially with most of the builds that would be using such a, you know, heavy and uniquely shaped piece would need multiple and have the mass for all of them. But we'll see. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to do a whole lot of building on this stream. That might be another separate one, since there's always more building to do. But yeah, I can at least talk about the changes I've made thus far. So yeah, we can look at the different builds and whatnot. Actually, unrelated to the changes, which is probably easier to show, we started doing a car building competition in the clan. So I'll go over my submissions for those. I'm not going to go through all like the entire post because other people are submitting their vehicles and it's their onus on like it, you know, whether or not they want to show them, if at all, and the respective channels they want to disperse that information. But I can at least show mine. So the first one was monster truck themed, and me being the cheeky little bugger that I am, made not a monster truck. So the base of it was essentially this one, which I continued to iterate on after the challenge completed. So this is essentially purely an art build that I have left up on exhibition for people to continue to poke around with, although I haven't re-uploaded it since some of the changes, namely getting a second upgraded flock from the last mini battle pass. But or for instance the Tachi perk changes. So, you know, once again, just the devs making us have to completely re-upload and overhaul all of our builds on exhibition every update. Xbox app does not like that, huh? Not too bad for him, because I'm going to showcase it anyway. So essentially just a monster truck where I threw on harvesters on the front, and then I did cheeky little Tachi placement, because unlike tempuras, they can actually fit the hitbox, the beam, in between the harvesters. So for those who are not familiar with harvester placement, those are actually like touching in the middle section. They're literally just flipped around this line. But as a result, the hitbox for the harvesters is slightly larger, and thus actually is more than 1 full pip, but less than 2 full pips. It's about a pip and a half extending down. So because the Tachi is essentially a point hitbox, a beam hitbox, you can fit those between them, but not the tempuras, which are more of a like a rectangular box. So this is just me going and working much as I always do to try and make things functional rather than just art. So a couple things I did interesting with that. Those large parts here, panel arcs, I messed around a few times. I feel like we have like good end cap options, but I could like never figure out a good way to do them because I've been trying to use them as fenders since they're 4 wide and wrap around things quite nicely, and also have a lot of durability for their size and shape. But you can't wrap the other Dawn's Children parts around them very well. So for instance, we got the, I don't know what they're called, they're just corner pieces as well. So if we just slap that on the ground, then it resets my scrolling. For instance, they added the heat sinks in with the same update, and you can like kind of fit them on, but they don't line up very well if you do sort of a continuation of the slope. And if you do the opposite direction, then the frames don't quite line up and it flares out again. So like while it kind of works, it's not quite what I'm looking for. So for instance, you still have this weird gap in the middle, and then you could kind of cap it off like this, but in that case you'd be better off just like doing it that way to begin with against whatever surface you're looking to wrap around. Again, namely wheels. You can essentially look at this as another version of this, but obviously not as deep and not with a smaller inlet. So yeah, what I've tried doing a couple of times as well, because every time I forget that I've tried it before and I think it'll work better than it does, is to use the observation pods. And that also doesn't really work, since even though again we sort of have like the fractal like repeating of the slopes of it, they don't actually line up themselves either way. So, and then that's not even going to snap, but you can see they don't really line up that way either. So kind of a frustrating part to build around, but in any case, when we get to my garage slot, see that I actually have a solution for that now. But in any case, that was sort of the biggest thing I pulled off, and I updated the build a few times, mostly trying to work within the parts limit. So I had to take some liberties. You can see there's already a lot of the core parts on it, well over the rep bonus cap of 25, but again, it's an art build, so it's not like it needs to be super viable. We have a couple of 3x2x4s, sorry, 3x2x2s scrolled away in the back. And we did, in my eyes at least, do a pretty good job of actually armoring everything up. Looking at almost 3k durability, not bad, especially on a melee build. Of course, super not viable for a 15,000 power score, but I mean that's what you get when you use a legendary light cabin in the Odin generator. You're not going to be under 10,000 anyway, unless you're running like cords for weaponry. So that is essentially the monster truck that realistically I probably would have been better off submitting for the competition. And like I said, you can kind of see me trying to have the panel arc line up on the top with the observation pod. I think it kind of works okay as like a sunshade if you consider the frame to just be like an actual frame with the rest of this being windshield. You have a bit of an overlap from above, which again, IRL functionality, pretty decent. And then we have a plethora of effects to trigger naturally. So yeah, pretty happy with the way that turned out. And in any case, when I got about halfway through building this, before I made, like I said, another couple of revisions afterwards to like pretty it up some more, I was kind of inspired by a song by Clutch. I think it's literally called Behold the Colossus. It's one of the lyrics in there in any case, but talking about Cyclops basically essentially coming back and ruining humanity. So to that end, I thought, why not make a monsters truck? So that's what this is. It's essentially, you can see it's the chassis of the other one, but I've essentially changed it out to have a Cyclops sitting in it. Where his legs would actually sit, I don't know, you could argue that these are his knees tucked up to his chest. I was just trying to make him have a nice big pot belly, because that seems to be pretty consistent design element with Cyclops. But in any case, we got the neutrino scope up there. I was originally having it as a destructor for lasing things, and I was using this simply for the fact of having the higher parts limit, but like kind of decided against it because I figured giving you a POV of it anyway would be a little bit better. Did also kind of try and make an arm like hold a spear or something, but there isn't really a whole lot of like specific weaponry mentioned by Cyclops in literature other than throwing like entire trees or something. And I'm actually at the height cap of this, and because these are straight pipes, they don't really hold things very well. So like I could theoretically use the Christmas tree decor as like a, oh, he's throwing a tree at you thing. But I'm just going to scroll all the way to it. But this is kind of an awkward shape and only has the pins on one side. And like I said, straight pipes wouldn't be able to grab this at all. So kind of just did away with it. And now he's sort of shielding his eyes to stare at things from afar. But otherwise, like, same build, same cosmetics. You can now stare down motherfuckers. So yeah, that's fun. And I'll probably keep both of these on exhibition just because they were, I don't know if I'd say necessarily like an interesting enough design challenge, because I feel like that really undermines like the value of like the other ones that people submitted. But in any case, this is the first one, and it's also the one that I feel the most, I definitely spent the most time on it. And I feel is probably the most successful, not only for the theme of it, despite, you know, technically not being a monster truck, but whatever, but also for the execution of it as an art build. So I'll probably keep these around. Not so sure about the other ones. Likewise, I still got my Psycho Pete from the summer contest marathon, because again, I felt like that ended pretty well. So as long as I have these extra, yeah, what is it, one extra slot currently, but like as long as I have them, it's decent enough for me to hang on to. So like I do have to again go and overhaul and upload a lot of these builds for exhibition, but most of the other ones have just been downloaded. So you can look at, literally the Discord tells me the order. So and then we had muscle cars, which I did not participate in. We had the lunatic faction vehicles. So once again, being the contrarian that I am, instead of making a car, I made a helicopter. And not super happy with the armoring job on this, but admittedly, not only do I not really use Lunatic's parts a lot, but I find that they have issues flowing into each other. And I was building this in like the last 2 hours of the contest, so it was a little rushed. In any case, this is a re-attempt, because I've done one before and it didn't work then and it doesn't really work now, but of a melee helicopter with the Lunatics theme. So while it's not necessarily like a brand new invention of a build per se, it's one that I redid for this contest because I felt it was kind of fitting, and again, feel like it got pulled off pretty well, especially since we're primarily looking at like art rather than like really competitive PvP viability per se. So kind of funny that the Xbox app is acting as if there's a blurred QR code right there, because that's just the intake for the cabin, quote-unquote, engine. Whatever. Xbox app being fuck you, what else is new? So yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Like, the parts list kind of tells you all there really is to it. I have a ramming nose. I have a Skinner hidden in the belly of it. And then, of course, because we're lunatics, I went with the gas gen and with the ability to get fuel. And then I slapped on a booster at the end because we had an extra energy, why not? And we're running the Cheetah engine and then the Tormentor module to increase our melee damage, and the Chameleon, again, not super smart mounting point for my Skinner, but whatever, it works and is thematic. And gameplay wise, pretty much what you'd expect You're able to cloak. You're able to go fast. You're able to ram things. And you're able to either yoink things or latch onto them to deal damage. So, other than the normal issues with actually doing that with helicopters. And I will note that it is kind of interesting because while I didn't purposefully design it this way, the nose is at like the perfect angle where the Skinner can't actually aim where you're pointing unless you lock the like handbrake to lock the angle of the vehicle. So while it's kind of annoying in some senses, it does let you swoop down and have the Skinner actually be protected or hidden, and then at the last moment kind of just point the nose up with the handbrake and then be able to grab things and then either again try and fly off or latch onto them. See if I can't do a better job here. Guess not. So anyway, not a really good build. People were asking me like, man, that's a cool idea. How well does it work? And the answer is it doesn't, which is pretty much the exact same last time I tried to make a similar idea. I feel like honestly your best bet would probably just be making like essentially like a crane where you have like a large cage underneath you and then just have the harvesters at the top, like just an open box, and then trying to like land or like disable your rotors on top of things, because actually having like it just attached to your vehicle at the bottom like this, as you see, tends to cause you to roll over, especially if there's a significant mass or speed difference, even though just like in theory sitting down on top of them should be fine. Exponentially harder on other aircraft, especially those that are aware of what you're doing and trying to prevent you from doing it. But yeah, it's an interesting enough concept that one could mess around with and do. So there's that. And again, these are again not even rated on like PvP functionality or anything. It's just literally like people vote based on their own whims, which for the most part is how well it matches the theme. So that's that, and that's that slot, and we're going to be getting rid of it because again it's not good. Though I will note this is the first time I actually caught on to the fact that the buggy shoulder rests line up with the aggressor cabin, which kind of makes sense because they came out at the same time. But again, I never tried before because I don't really do lunatic stuff before. But yeah, I mean, like it is a lunatic cabin, arguably the lunatic cabin based off the Perkins stats. So it makes sense. And I suppose, come to think about it, this actually lines up pretty well with the Saya as well, interestingly. Not as well as I thought. Just has the same like 4-ish wide mesh at the top, but this is not lining up on either side. So I think it's just them reusing the asset, the texture, which is fine by me. Certainly doesn't really match the aesthetic or the angling of it. So what is that? Threw some cheeky tines on here. But yeah, the tail is kind of ugly. Even though, again, the shoulders line up pretty well with the whaleback, which is nice, but it's not a phenomenal build overall. So we're just going to get rid of that. And then cry, because that actually probably means that we deleted our build history in the garage. No, we didn't. Excellent, great. So that's a walker. We'll get to that later. But generally when you like load blueprints or edit things in the garage, it gets really picky about what build history it keeps. So just throw our daily patrol build back in there. And then we can look at our other builds that we've updated. The other contest was War Rigs, which again I didn't participate in. And to be fair, I had ideas for both of these because on the topic of using like clutch songs as inspiration, there's literally a song called Firebird, and I do like Mad Max and I do like War Rigs, but both these times it's just like, oh, I'll do it later, and then I just didn't do it later. Although, to be fair, no small part of that is because of all these like projects I keep picking up for games like this and Warframe, and trying to do math and determine ancient secrets. So yeah, but I only have those 2 builds to show, and yeah, I showed them. So the other ones that were kind of like procrastinating on and clogging up my builds are duplicate builds, which are just before and after certain updates, which were primarily just me getting the Akilos. Bad example. This one. Primarily getting the Akilos and the Cyclops from the last battle pass. So if we move on over to my used build edits, we're on version 2.19.12 right now, and you can see the highest number in any of these areas is 2.17. So a bit of a backlog on them, and yeah, a lot of them are just Akilos and Cyclops, and especially because of the energy changes, the Cyclops cucks multiple of my builds where I'm like, I need 1 more energy, but because epic light cabins and medium legendary cabins only have 24 energy, and I actually need 25 for the Cyclops, because most of the design for the game, I'm guessing, was built around assuming that you'd use the 1 energy, the 2 energy under the new system, for the flywheel. And if you add another 0.5 energy under the old system, 1 energy under the new system, via the recharge booster, well, you can't just pull that out of thin air. So until such time as we get a heavy relic generator, which is, I mean, inevitable anyway. But I'm like 1 point off of a lot of these builds working, namely this one, the MI24. But practically anything, especially, it's like I said, running the light epic cabin or the medium legendary cabin. And to be fair, it gets worse the further right and up you go on the tech tree. If you're running heavier cabins, they can obviously have significantly less than 1 energy deficit. And likewise if you're using lower tier things, but generally at that point, like, you're aware of the trade-offs of, like, you're not going to be able to, well, for one, you're never going to really want to run an Odin with like a Carapace or a Trucker to begin with, but like, you know, selecting those cabins, like, you're going to have to work with less stuff. But it's just really super annoying that, like, not only is there a lot more options for heating and cooling than there is for reloading, but the highest tier reloading costs an additional energy point, completely screwing up the economy on a lot of builds, whereas the Akilos are just literally the same energy as the Seal and Shiver. And because of, as I mentioned before on the prior, not the immediately prior, but prior battle pass / update event and analysis, like, when you look at the efficacy of those parts per energy, the Cyclops being 3 makes sense, but the Aquila being only 2 does not. Likewise, because the Akilo's perk is a bit complex in what it actually ends up doing for the weapon, yeah, you got to pull out some real great charts to actually determine what ends up being the best option for a lot. So I have yet to fully graph out the damage over time chart that I need to do on a per weapon, per hardware, per upgrade, and like with the perk and upgrade potentially as well basis. So that's another thing I've just been procrastinating on. So yeah, I'll eventually get around to redoing a kilos on everything, probably, maybe, but I have some math I want to crunch before doing that. And there's also, you know, the whole, like, actually playing the game and doing non-Crossout related things in my life aspect that complicates it, or the, like, 19 different projects I got going on for Crossout right now anyway. So as far as what we have currently for builds to showcase, so I mean, we still have the where is it? We have the Hind, which is now over energy because of the energy changes. So I was looking at changing out the hurricanes for 2 Lucifers, and then just dropping the trombone. And then you're looking at 26 energy for weapons, but then you don't need the trombone, and then you go under. So that's actually something that we can demonstrate now as the stream gets handy. So the current version being better off, plus like this is super annoying that there's a 3x4 gap, 3x2 depending on, or 3x3 depending on how you look at it for the helicopter wings. So having it be 3x4 with both of them fits the Lucifer quite well. And lo and behold, I have 2 of them. And I've already priorly talked about how, yes, technically this hind would be more of an appropriate adaptation if we were using the actual hind propeller and tail rotor, but that doesn't actually jive with the perk of the Ghost itself. So until such a time as they change that again, if at all, we're going to rock it this way instead. So we can do that. Look at that, beautiful. We are not over energy anymore. We can still keep the Yeti and the Cheetah, but unfortunately we can't implement. Okay, well, the stream for WM. Thanks, Xbox. Very cool. So anyway, we're not over energy, and we can keep the Yeti and the Cheetah, which are kind of big parts of the Ghost perk. But unfortunately, we're still 1 energy short of being able to run the Cyclops instead of the flywheel. So that kind of chafes me a bit, and I don't really have a good solution for that, short of, again, getting a legendary relic generator. Or sorry, a heavy relic generator. And, like, who knows if or when that's going to happen. And, I mean, it's not like they're going to undo the energy nerfs for things per se, but even, again, this is a medium epic cabin, so at least I can get the +1 energy if I swap the cabin, but then it's a completely different build. It doesn't, like, it's not. So yeah, basically life's hard. And I mean, anybody who looked at the energy changes could have said that. I also still am not sure, I mentioned last time I was on this, I'm not quite sure what I want to do for more decor on this, if at all. At least now that I'm not running the Hurricanes, it's a little easier to run the wherever they are. The light pods. But I do like having the flares because we don't actually have any like lights for like actual aircraft. The closest we have are the like lamp lights, and even then those aren't point lights like on actual aircraft. And I don't even have green because I didn't win the watermelon contest. So kind of, yeah, unsure what I want to do with those as well. I suppose to be fair, I can actually do that, and that kind of works. Although we're horribly limiting the range of motion of those, but whatever. It is, again, a build that is realistically primarily an art build that I will gladly claw whatever actual functionality out of it I can get, but that puts us closer in any case. Not quite a perfect solution, but be how it do. I also don't need to worry about faking the empennage anymore because I'm not hiding a trombone in it. But there's also not really a good shape that I can think of that'll fill that gap. I think I'm not really sure what else I'd do for the other decoy. Though the easy answer would be to just slap on a couple of holograms. See. And we also have a abundance of different cosmetic things. Probably switch that to right trigger, and then leave the rest of those. And then we can probably actually throw all of the activatable decor on the red bumper, and then that way we don't have to turn off our propeller to flex on people. Because alternating these makes it a lot easier to manage the perk for them. So there we go, we're doing some building on stream anyway today. How exciting. And then we'd be our normal lazy self and just use one paint on everything. Then we can update that. Boom, bam, we got our update 19 version. Amazing. Even though, again, it's not really a hind, it's like hind-ish, hind-y, hind adjacent. But, you know, whatever. Boom, bam, dot that. Technically, we can't really trigger Adeline either right now, so we'll probably go with J. And then I'll probably revisit it in my own time for like maxing out the mass and parts limit a little bit more. But there you go. Some on stream updates. So for our crab build, we were running the seals. We are now running the Aquilo, because regardless of the math of it, having the cooldown is easier to sort of consistently trigger when you're running cyclones, and we're not able to hit the speed cap for the seals to trigger their additional heating anyway. So while, like I said, I'll do the math, I'll double check, I'll find out. I know that 2 kilos with all of the cyclones overheating at the same time doesn't give enough cooling rate to prevent the perk from entirely decaying with cyclone anyway. But you know, again, we'll revisit with math. At the very least, unlike with some of the other builds, there's no risk of me needing to, or feeling the need to, rebuild it with the new legs, which are better in every way. Because as a, you know, crab build, these sort of side splayed legs work a lot better than the sort of, you know, upright biped legs, rather. So if we go to the actual other slot, we'll put that back there. So to talk about the other differences, as a result of us using seals beforehand, I had the one seal there with the ventilation boxes, and then one seal underneath, and then frames wrapped around the side, because the Aquilos are larger and the Odin just takes up a absurd amount of space. Sorry, the Odin. I kind of need to change stuff around. So this is the result with them on the side instead. We had a little bit more mass to play around with at the back, so I poked around with changing this out a little bit, namely moving the car jack down into the side rather than having it beside the engine, so I could use the hard module on both sides for a more symmetrical look. And then looking at eventually maybe filling in these extra gaps, but we don't have any other mass to play around with in the meantime, so our options are fairly limited in that regard. Likewise, there's not a whole lot of parts that allow us to wrap through the Gerda connection points, so not really a whole lot I could change there. And we don't have very many 6x3x1 structure parts at all, even with the new update, so we can't really like fit this better, even though I'd like it if it was a more flat piece. And likewise, the other 6x4x1 parts not only don't wrap around the Cyclone at all, but are also less durability than the reflectors, which are just phenomenal. So, like for instance, I could do, instead of 55 and 75, I could do that, but it's less durability, and while it doesn't interfere with the angles any more than the reflectors do those little corner nodes, it also doesn't really protect it as well. It also just doesn't look good, so kind of stuck with what I got for the time being thing until we get new parts out and fit it better. And yeah, I mean, we didn't really change a whole lot on this one. This is one of the more minor changes, luckily. But hey, we can make that number go up. And like, I put the tilde in the title of the stream because like these were changes I made before this current update 19. So while they're technically still up to date for update 19, really the changes were in update 18 or update 17, but we're just going to label them with the newest version for the time being, at least just for the sake of my sanity. And again, we might go back and re-update them some more after anyway. So we can bin that, since that's now this. Except question why that one had higher power score. Now I am losing my mind. Oh, because of the keen. That would do it. Alright. Then we have a bunch of things that became irrelevant, namely with the hover and leg changes, as well as the implementation of the new legs that allow us to be even taller and beefier, but those are going to be, again, pretty heavy overhauls, so I'm not going to touch that during the stream because I don't want to make this stream like 8 hours long. So while I eventually will get around to updating them, I'm just going to be talking about the other ones that I've like made progress on and saved in another slot, and now need to like undo that so I have more slots so I can build other things, like the other updates that I'm alluding to happening, maybe eventually. So we also have our helicarrier, which kind of got cooked with the Yokozuna changes, but they've only nerfed the speed and mass on this build 4 consecutive updates, so no big deal. And I'll need to refuse this for mass limit so it actually fits again. But you can see we changed out the front because the bulbs kind of looked ugly. We swapped out the parts, the seals, for the kilos, because again, not really hitting speed limit with this thing when we're just hovering in the sky. And then we have the extra energy still, so we use that for a Oculus because why not? And then we also moved around these panels on the side here because I thought, wow, this sure looks ugly. And that looks ever so slightly less. So again, kind of the current version, you can see there's not much difference power score wise or anything. Like, its durability is almost identical. We just, like I said, shuffled a couple parts around, added the Oculus, but now both of them are over mass anyway, so I'm gonna have to go and redo all of that anyway. I still do want to play around with like not messing up, but like changing the internals a little bit more maybe, but again, until such time as I get like another interested party for actually like building this as a full fusion build, it doesn't really technically matter. I will actually note though that those new radiator bonnets might work better than the elbows. I mean, not currently because of the whole mass situation, but the elbows are kind of a... Yeah, sure. I'm going to remove the wrong one. They're kind of an annoying shape because their pins are such a way that I can't round it off, kind of, and connect it because there's no pip there. But I could maybe do that. This. There we go. I mean, it's far from perfect, but I think that that looks a little bit better. Does give more vehicle durability. Again, it also adds more mass, but you know, we're already having that issue anyway, so like, what the fuck ever. And I'm gonna have to wait like a month or so until I get the other two radiator bonnets, because they spread those motherfuckers out. So, you know, we cry many salty tears, especially since I already bought the Elite Battle Pass, because they're so fucking psyched for mechs, bro. Even though they also did a disservice by calling them the robotic legs. Even though these are the legs for mechs. These are the mech legs. These are the robot legs. These are the legs you see in BattleBots and Robo Wars and anything Robo related. But, you know, again, Russian company, translations, suffering, just the regular stuff. So as far as the internal, I literally don't think I changed anything in here, other than just, throwing the kilos in. And we still don't have an additional 8x4 panel, so I'm running a bumper in there for lack of anything else to fill up the space. But again, hey, you know, new parts and stuff, there's the possibility of getting something else in the future maybe, but we don't really have a whole lot of parts limit to play around with anyway. So yeah, but hey, there we go, one small update to a otherwise outdated build which needs love, so that's fun. Okay, not you guys, you are for the other builds in the other slots. I need, there we go, that one. Beautiful. Yeah, there's still more I want to do with this, but again, kind of shelved, especially with the whole overmass by multiple thousands of kilos. One could say megagrams, or tons, in fact. So that's actually not correct. This one I'm definitely going to label just 18 because it is actually update 18, but update 19 broke it, so. Even though we have update 19, but you know, it's complicated. What can I say? Life is complicated. We'll just go with 19 just to be consistent, I suppose. And then I'll probably change it again after stream and make custom notes about it in my builds. But not doing that for the time being. And hey, at least I saved some power score by swapping out those elbows. Rascally increase that they are. Which means on the plus side I didn't accidentally delete a part this time. Great. Throw my other helicopter back there. And then we have like technically this I'm going to do some updates on. This is essentially irrelevant until such a time as I decide to use harpies again. But I think that's everything that I at least made changes for already and needed to like do the video so I could clear out the slots. But I'll look forward to, I don't know if forward is the term I'd use. Maybe you, the audience, should look forward to more high quality video content from me. But like at least a couple of things were changed for the better. But there's just a whole lot of stuff that I kind of semi-shelved, was semi-procrastinating on, and now because of the changes are even worse. So, yeah. On the plus side again, though, you know, mech legs. So I don't need to have this 10 to 12 big ram monstrosity. I can just use 4 or 6 quote-unquote robo legs now. So that's cool. I've also made a couple of mechs, but because I didn't have any slots available, I didn't really do anything with them. So now that we have slots, we can actually do some with them. So this is my attempt at making a Titanfall 2 North Star, but in like the worst possible sense. I don't know if the other one's still up here. I guess it's already been a week. But North Star is a Titan from Titanfall 2. And it was removed. Damn it, Yodel. Well, in any case, just like the Ronin or the BT, somebody made one that actually looks like North Star. But it made sense because like we have most of their kit. We have a Raijin, which works as the plasma charge gun. We have the jump legs. We have the dash legs. You can use one of each on a build, like with this. So just like with North Star. Wow, that's crunchy. You can both jump and dash, even though you don't do either of them very well. But I was looking at like, hey, you know, it'd be cool. What if we just slapped on a bunch of rockets on a build that could dash and jump? So there's actually conversation about that. Which I guess was further back than I thought it was. So yeah, I could do that with Pyres. And then I spent 6 hours doing that. And then, yeah, it doesn't look like North Star at all. I mean, it's kind of roundish. Pretty much the only thing it's got going for it. But in any case, it's running the Hadron, because Hadron, King, and then 5 or 6 Pyres and/or trombones is like firing twice as fast as running the Harpy or like any other cabin you'd use for the purpose. So even though it's a lot chunkier, I feel like it works better for the roll. Likewise, because we have such a higher mass increase, we can actually run the dino legs instead of one dino, one Tengu. So unfortunately it cannot both dash and jump, but like it's also a complication of the part because the dyno lets you wrap around it quite nice. And here we go, back to the panel arc discussion. Yeah, turns out not only do they fit beautifully around the new legs, but the shock absorber also fits. Like I said, this matches almost perfectly. Like this is the part that I was missing, the part that I was thinking of would be like, oh man, if we just had one of that shape for the panel arcs, it would be perfect. And we do. And not only does it work, but it works phenomenal specifically for these new legs and like protects them. It has a damage pass through. It's great. It's great. Love it. Very happy coincidence. So yeah, figured it out for that here. But yeah, the Tengu legs are fucking miserable to try and fit. Like you literally have to remove that and that, and then that, and then it will let you place them, but you can't put anything like really anywhere fucking near these things. They get super pissed. So yeah, I'm not gonna do that. So even though I miss out on the whole mass thing, like this works a lot more, and like we actually can use all that extra mass for armor, which is good because this is a chunky boy. So I redid it a few times, wasn't super happy with the shape. Honestly, still not super happy with the side armor here, especially you can see again we sort of have like fractals of repeating like curves, but again we just don't really have a whole lot of parts that like fit and mesh and meld together super well. So it's sort of a is what it is thing, I think. We do also have that awkward one piece of energy where if I had one extra piece of energy, I could get rid of this and that, and then have enough for a second trombone or run 6 Pyres. But instead, the quote-unquote answer currently would be to downgrade the Cyclops to the flywheel and do that. But like, I don't really care enough. And then if I go to 6 Pyres, then I believe the math on it works out that the King isn't going to fully have their reload speed properly. But at least I can fit 4 Pyres pretty well. And I played around. It took me a while to get like a good like shape for the placement of these, but I like how I can nest them in the Manicas and the APC bumpers. If you fight an actual player in next step, though, you get shredded. Like, you have pyres top mounted on a mech. Like, these things aren't staying on. But, I was playing with them in raids. It was kind of fun. And again, versus the Dusk or Harpy, which, yes, has the +1 energy, but also wouldn't need the King because it's not the Hadron cabin. We have the trade-offs of, again, being able to shoot the things at half the cooldown is kind of a big deal, especially when you're fighting bots, because there's a lot of them. Dealing 20% more damage is nowhere near as powerful as doubling your fire rate. So yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll remake it, maybe kind of in the future, who knows, to try and make it more North Star-y. But again, apparently the only one that was on exhibition got taken down, and actually probably not the only one. I'm sure somebody else ripped it off already and then re-uploaded it. Normally Yodo's pretty good about keeping their builds up, and their builds are pretty good, so I'm wondering if maybe they're just currently iterating on it to re-upload. Okay, apparently I'm just an idiot and didn't like the build, but to be fair, I am subscribed to them anyway, so I do see all their blueprints. So it just shows what I know, make a fool of myself. But anyway, yeah, so this is the North Star they made, and running the Raijin Capcan, because, tether trap. But yeah, I'd probably mix the legs. I'm also not so sure why these are so far forward, but they are. And then of course you can remake this a little bit more for try and do something with the cluster rocket. Like, we don't really have a cluster rocket, but with the power of a like flute on or something, like it works. A wasp maybe, I don't know, but I mean, they did a pretty damn good job overall. But like I said, I'm like a huge fan of their stuff normally, so pretty easy. They're also overmassed because of the changes to the bonnets, because again, they quintupled the durability and mass of them, so he's kind of a slow boy now. But for that North Star feel, baby, we got the gun, we got the trap, and we can dash. And like I said, if they were to swap out one of the legs for a dino leg, we'd be cooking. So there's that. And then here's my absolutely absurd, like, heavy version of it. Do have quite a bit of decor on this bad boy. So it ended up, like I said, it's not really North Star. So if what you're taking away from this is that this is my North Star mech, you're embarrassing yourself and me. And okay, well, thanks, I guess. That was weird. I haven't seen bots attack each other before, especially without any sort of, there's nothing that was, like, they weren't hostile to each other. I don't know why. I know sometimes if you aggro one of them, the others in the garage will, like, get hostile back and fight them for you, but they were both friendly. So, I don't know, I guess my brother just had something really out for us. Alright, well, anyway, consider that a warning. From a brother who hasn't even played the game. I don't even think, yeah, this isn't like Warframe, it doesn't tell you a last online, but I can go to my friends list and JU's profile, like, getting stunned on by a build that hasn't logged on for 2 3/4 years, to say it. Anyway, so it's not North Star, but it's North Star-esque, and I was able to do a little theme. I'm like, okay, well, I'm rocket guy is doing a little bunny hopping, so I threw on some inflatable mammoths because it looks like I got big mech arms, and I like the way that they like flop around when you step, which Xbox is doing a terrible job of showing by getting all crunchy again. Thank you, Microsoft. Very cool. But not only that, but I can make them a bunny, because we got the little tail-like looking Quetzalcoatl, and then the little bunny ears. And then, while I generally am not a fan of the, like, hey, my build is pooping, because it's a bunny anyway and it does big hops, we can have our little fluffy tail, and we can make it poop. And I'll even do you one better. We can do all of that whilst propelling ourselves with the power of flatulence. So, you know, again, not generally a fan of it, but damned if the stars didn't align for this build particularly. So unfortunately they took out game chat. I've tried to impress upon other people in the raids by being like, hey, I can't even ping because this is the garage, but like when we spawn in, I'll ping the ground and be like, hey, I have something important to show you. And of course the important thing I have to show them is the big hops. But there you go. If you're looking for a way to use the fart horn in a non-BM, non-trolling people manner, which is pretty much the only way I've seen quote-unquote comedian and Joker horn. But there you go. You can do it with big hops now. Propel your bunny mech with farts. And yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. I mean, it's not like I was really doing anything super like interesting build-wise with this, other than the shock absorber and panel arc in my eyes, at least. But yeah, like I said, I'll probably keep this, maybe make some iterations. It was also easy enough for me to, so I should probably save this. Let's see, is there some way I can fit a fart bunny mech in a clever title? I'm just gonna call it the Floopin mech for the meantime, because that almost is a pun. Lupin is bunny, isn't it? Pretty sure. Not you. Pretty sure that's bunny. Ruh-roh. Good priority, internet. Let's see. Lepus. Oh, well that doesn't work very well at all. Any other fart adjacent puns you want to give me, Wikipedia? Well, I didn't know that either. Well, anyway, suffice to say, there's a lot more art to go on to try and figure out better puns. So we're just going to have to be kind of lame and name it the Fart Bunny Mech for the time being, for lack of a better option. But anyway, if I want to actually like contribute in raids, because like I can bring it into medium raids, which I'm not even showing here, I guess. But it's, you know, not very good at it. At least the Hadron King is just a powerful enough combo in general that I can also turn this into a actually Leviathan fight, a valid one, by slapping on Jotuns instead. So it's you know, like I said, like this is, like I did spend like 6 hours on making it, but it's at least like a solid enough platform that I can make it modular for different purposes, even if I don't necessarily need or want to, and we'll probably revisit it in the future. Like, it works. And, you know, again, hey, if I get that one extra energy so I can also run the Cyclops instead of the flywheel, that would be great. But to be fair, it already has that one extra energy over the Ghost, and I don't need to run a Pegasus engine per se. It's just that, like, if I'm running the Razorback instead, then I don't really need the full mass of 2 Dino Legs. So, you know, at least I got options with it. So this is I mean, if you've seen me doing levy raids the past, like, week, it's basically what I've been doing. I've just been running this. But, yeah, I think that is covering pretty much everything that's been going on the past month or so in Crossout for me. I mean, there's the frustrations about a lot of things, naturally. But, yeah, I'll look forward to making more mechs, especially, namely, once I get more of those actual, mech parts. At least with these corners, I'll be able to make more hidden compartments. Because I already have this on the front, because it wraps around the train plow pretty decent, but the concavity is not quite large enough to actually fit anything, since this is only like a 1.5 by 1.5 deep space. You couldn't fit anything that isn't just fitting a 2x2x2 in there. But when I have, those other parts, maybe be able to do a little bit more with it. Not 100% sure, but in any case, the bonnets and the battle walker stand, or whatever they're called, side, I expect I'll be able to do a little bit more with, especially, when I get 4 of them rather than just 2. So, I think that'll conclude that for today. And then I will probably, now that I actually have more slots, be able to poke around with updating some more of these builds, probably doing videos for them then separately, because tacking on to this video, which is already, probably, an hour, by doing building, which take anywhere from 30 minutes to like 6 hours in one go, would be, I think, cheapening the conciseness of the experience a little bit, even though conciseness isn't exactly what I'm known for. Yeah, I mean, I know I'm forgetting something. There's definitely something else I want to talk about. I don't even know what that was, to be fair. I probably should have made a notes list before, but whatever. Like I said, I got a billion different things in Crossout to do anyway, so we'll look at updating it. Yeah, especially with all those extra narrow wings, I'm excited for that.